Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we've got another news and rumor review here to discuss. In today's video, we're looking at some signings from our past couple of days, some news and rumor updates, and we've got some trade rumors involving the Bolts, Oilers, and the Vancouver Canucks. So touch on all these teams coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this for all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to comment. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. And don't forget to stay tuned for videos coming out in the very near future. So in today's video, we got another news and review here to discuss. As usual, I would start off by talking about some signings from our past couple of days, but there have been no signings. So we'll start with some injury updates from our past couple of days. We're going to go alphabetically here. So first, the Boston Bruins have placed Jordan Harris on injured reserve with undisclosed injury, so it's not overly good news there. He's going to miss at least the next week, so that's a bad blow there to the Bruins decor. Ukko-Pekka was assigned on a conditioning stint by the Buffalo Sabres to the AHL, so it's very good news. It could mean that Ukko-Pekka is nearing a return, which would be very big news there for the Buffalo Sabres. Shane Gostisbehere was sent to Carolina and will miss the next 2 games due to a lower body injury he's seen a little while ago, so he was on their current road trip, but now he's been sent to Carolina, so he's going to miss at least the next 2 games. Miles Wood could return to game action from his eye injury before the end of the month of October. It's not going to be really good. Woods missed about a week and a half with an injury to his eye, so hopefully he won't be out for an overly long period of time, and maybe he returns in the next week and a half. Nils Lundkvist was placed on injury reserve with a lower body injury, while Matt Duchene missed a second straight game on Tuesday with an upper body injury, so not great news there. Hopefully Duchene's not going to be out for much longer, but that's a bad blow there, missed a second straight game, while Nils Lundkvist was placed in injury reserve, so he's going to be out for at least the next week, so that's a bad blow there for the Stars. Patrick Kane will be out at least the next 2 games as the Red Wings go on their mini road trip with upper body injury because he's not traveling with the team. So it's a bad blow there for the Wings as Kane's going to be out for the next little bit. Kasperi Kapanen is out week to week with undisclosed injury, so it sounds like he could be missing maybe even more than a month, so that's a bad blow there for the Oilers. Corey Perry was activated off of injury reserve after missing the entire year so far and most of preseason with a knee injury, so that's really good news to see that Perry was able to get back in game action before the calendar flipped to November, so great stuff there for Perry. Zach Bogosian is out day-to-day with a lower body injury and was placed in injury reserve. So it's a battle there for the Wild, as Bogosian has been so far in the season a really solid third pair defenseman. Jonathan Marshall is out day-to-day with a lower body injury, so hopefully he won't be out for an over long period of time, but it's a battle there for the Preds. Stefan Noesen was active for injury reserve and returned to game action after suffering a groin injury in preseason, missing the last little bit of preseason and the start of the season with a groin injury, so it's a battle there for the Devils, but it was good to see him get back in game action yesterday. While Juho Lammikko was placed in injury reserve with an undisclosed injury, Cody Glass missed Wednesday's game with upper body injury and is out day-to-day, and Seamus Casey was active for season opening injury reserve and returned to the AHL. So Casey started the season on injured reserve. He's now been healthy enough that they activate him. He's going to play in the minors, so not too surprising there. Lammikko's placed in injury reserve as a decent depth forward, and Glass is a solid third, fourth line center, is also going to be out. So bad blows there for the Devils. Pierre Engvall underwent ankle surgery and is most likely going to be out for the rest of the regular season. There's a bad blow there for the Islanders. Rasmus Ristolainen is targeting a December return date from his injury that he suffered late last year in the regular season, so hopefully Ristolainen won't be out for an over long period of time anymore, but still the season he's going to miss at least next month. Zemgus Girgensson, who's been out since the preseason with undisclosed injury, could return this weekend, so that could be a big boost there for the Bolts to get a solid bottom 6 forward back. Mason Marchand is out day-to-day with a lower body injury and missed Tuesday's game for the Seattle Kraken. It's another one of a long list of injuries that the Seattle Kraken has suffered so far, so hopefully Marchand will be out for an over long period of time and he can recover and be back in the very near future. Adin Hill and Mark Stone are both out week to week. Hill with the undisclosed injury, Stone with the wrist injury. Talked about Stone a little while ago, but he has now been placed on injured reserve to allow some more roster flexibility. So very interesting note there. But Hill and Stone are out week to week, and Stone was placed on injured reserve. So very interesting note there. But those are all the injury updates from the past couple of days, as those are a lot of very intriguing injury updates around the NHL. Next, we're over to some reassignments, some recalls, and the waiver updates. So players players who were reassigned back to the AHL or juniors were Joshua Doon in Buffalo, Dyson Mayo in Columbus, Owen Beck in Montreal, Brady Martin in Nashville, Luke Cagnoni in San Jose, and Ville Ottavainen in Seattle, while Michael Callahan in Boston, Hunter Haight in Minnesota, Waugh and Delgazio in Montreal, Lykesell in Ottawa, Myers in Seattle, James in Tampa, and Lindblom and Megna in Vegas were all recalled and on waivers. Daniel Miromanov, who we were talking about a little while ago, cleared waivers, and Andrew Agazzino in Utah, Phoenix Copley in LA, and Mark Gatcomb in NYI were all placed on waivers. So very interesting out there. If you look at the recalls, the reassignments, not too surprising. Buffalo reassigned Joshua Doon. Beck Malenstein's back from his personal leave, so they didn't really need an extra forward body, so they sent Doon down. Michael Callahan was called up due to the injury with Jordan Harris, so not too surprised there. They wanted to add defensive depth. Mayo was reassigned by the Columbus Blue Jackets due to the fact that it sounds like Branson might be getting fairly close to be returning, so that could be a really big boost, and they didn't really need Mayo at the NHL level. They swapped Beck back down to the minors while they brought in Waugh and Delgazio from the minors, so a little bit of a swap there from the Montreal Canadiens as they're able to get a couple more people back up, but they do send Beck back down. Brady Martin was sent to the OHL. He wasn't getting to any NHL action, so they're going to do what the Canucks did with Brandon Coots in the 2025 5th overall pick. It's going back to juniors to see if he can dominate and maybe make the team next year. So very interesting note there. Ollie Lykesell was recalled by Ottawa because they needed another forward body, so they bring in Lykesell instead of a guy like Kaliev. The Seattle Kraken swapped Myers for Ottavainen. They needed some more forward help instead of some defensive help, so they were able to bring up Ben Mayers. Luke Cagnoni was sent down. My guess is Muhammad Doolin and some of their other defensive players who are injured or nearing a return, so that's why Cagnoni was sent down. Dylan James was recalled by the Bolts because they just needed a little more added insurance in case some of those other guys that are currently injured are not going to be able to play. And then with Stone and Hill going out with injuries, they called up Lindblom and Megna, so not too surprising there. So very interesting note there about the recalls and reassignments. Going over to a waiver wire, I talked about this in my last video. Miromanov was on waivers. He cleared, so not too surprised. I thought there was a possibility with him being a solid third pair defenseman. There could be a team or two out there who try and claim him, but there wasn't, so he's now in the minors. I wonder if this maybe works out some sort of a possibility of him being traded, so we should wait and see on that. Well, Agazzino was mostly an AHL player the entirety of last year, so he, because of some injuries to the Utah team, wound up making the team, but now it seems like they're starting to get a little bit healthier, so they don't need Agazzino at the NHL level. The Kings are also seeming like they're going to be a little more healthier now with them having Kemper and Forsberg, so they don't need Copley. So for the second time this year, Copley's going to go back on waivers, and we'll see if he winds up being claimed or not. When it comes to Mark Gatcomb and NYI, the Islanders have a plethora of forwards, so they don't really need Gatcomb at the NHL level, at least at this point in time, so they place him on waivers. So I could see Gatcomb, because he's on the younger side of things, maybe be claimed off of waivers. We already seen Copley be claimed once this year off of waivers, so I guess that's a possibility too, but I wouldn't be surprised if all three of those guys wind up clearing. So we're going to have to wait and see on that, but keep your eye on the waiver wire later today, as Agazzino, Gatcomb, and Copley are all on waivers. And lastly, going over to the New York Islanders, just a small update here. Sergei Naumov, who was brought in a couple of years ago as the AHL goalie coach for the New York Islanders, has been named the new NHL goalie coach for the New York Islanders. So they relieved the former guy off of duties, and they assigned Naumov to be the new goalie coach. So very interesting note there is the Islanders in-season swap goaltending coaches. So very interesting note there. But that's the only other big piece of news that we talked about from our past couple of days. So very interesting note there. And lastly, going over to a couple of trade rumors. So we got 3 trade rumors here to talk about. Very interesting ones. We're going to start in Edmonton, as Frank Seravalli was talking about the Edmonton Oilers, and he says that a couple of names to watch out for with potential trades when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers would be Mattias Janmark, Ty Emberson, and Curtis Lazar. When Frank Seravalli was talking about the Edmonton Oilers, he was talking about potential trade candidates, and he says one of them has to be Mattias Janmark that the Oilers will wind up looking at. Janmark's a speedy winger. I think he's in the final year of his contract, where he's got this year and one more season left. He's making just over $1 million. The Oilers are in a very tight cap situation, so they could look to try and move him, try and get some cap flexibility, maybe get a draft pick involved. Seravalli also mentions Ty Emberson, which we talked about in our last video. He says once Alec Regulat gets back and sort of takes Emberson's spot on the lineup, then with Emberson making just over $1 million, just like Janmark, it might make some sense with the plethora of blue liners that the Oilers have right now to move on from Ty Emberson. And he also says that guy they have to think about the current fit with is Curtis Lazar, who is on a league minimum deal at this point, but he's a solid fourth line forward. So we know that Zach Hyman early in November is going to be activated off of long-term injury reserve. They're going to need a spot to activate him. They're also going to need a spot to activate Elliotte Regulat. So they're going to need a couple of roster spots. Now, they could try and sneak someone down off of waivers. They could try and move a guy who's not eligible for waivers, like maybe Isaac Howard or Matt Savoy to the AHL. That's a possibility as well. But it's also a possibility they could try and find some sort of a small trade. Janmark does make some sense. So with Emberson, I think Lazar's a little bit less likely given his cap hit and how good of a fourth liner he is. But I could definitely see Janmark or Emberson one getting dealt. I mean, they're both making over $1 million. They're both solid bottom end players. Janmark on the forward end, Emberson on the defensive end. And I do think that they would be able to free up some cap space by doing this. So I'm not going to say it's a guarantee, but it's a very likely chance that they just try and sneak someone down off of waivers once Hyman comes back. But with all of the players nearing a return from injuries, they're going to have a plethora of players on their roster, and they're going to only be able to have 23 of them. So we're going to have to wait and see if they do wind up trading someone like a Janmark or like a Emberson. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But keep your eye on the Edmonton Oilers. Next, going over to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Elliotte Friedman was recently talking about the Lightning, and he says that Gillian Breezeball, the GM of the Tampa Bay Lightning, knows that when there's a hole on his team, he usually winds up going after someone to improve it. Now, the Bolts don't have a whole bunch of assets at this point in time. They have a first-round pick in 2026 that they don't have, a first-round pick, I think, in 2027 they don't have. Like, I don't think they have their next 2 years of first-round picks. So, like, the Bolts are really tied up with the assets that they have right now. They also don't have a whole bunch of solid young talent at the NHL level, and they started out pretty poorly out of the gate this year. So, one name that Elliotte Friedman does say that could come up if the Bolts really wanted to try and go after some sort of a massive upgrade in season would be Sam O'Reilly. O'Reilly was recently just acquired this past offseason from the Edmonton Oilers in the Isaac Howard trade. He's a former first-round pick. I think it was first-round pick in 2024. So he's been a couple of years since he's been drafted now. He's a solid player. He's a guy who I think eventually could be a solid second, third-line center for the Tampa Bay Lightning or another organization. And he's probably the best prospect the Tampa Bay Lightning have at this point in time, or at least one of the best. So Elliotte Friedman says that Sam O'Reilly's a name that could wind up coming up in trade rumors if the Bolts really wanted to try and find some sort of instant upgrade. I personally think the Bolts are trying to sell, and I don't think they're going to be a playoff team this year. They haven't started like one. But I definitely do think there's a possibility that if they were to try and do the putting a band-aid on a bullet wound, then at this point in time, I do think that Sam O'Reilly might be a guy who they try and trade if they was able to get them some sort of an instant upgrade. I think it's a possibility. So we're going to wait and see on that. No guarantees by any means that the Bolts go out and try and make some sort of a major move. But if they were, it seems like Sam O'Reilly, the young prospect in Tampa, could be the guy who they wind up moving. So we'll have to wait and see on that. And lastly here, going over to the Canucks. Now, we've heard about this over the past little while. We've heard this basically ever since the offseason. The Canucks are looking for a second-line center, but due to the injury to Filipino that could threaten him being out for a couple of months, Frank Seravalli says that they're trying to up their look for a second-line center. Now, the names he put out aren't really second-line centers, but guys who I guess could potentially be second-line centers if need be. These are all more like third-line centers at this point in time, but Seravalli did mention a handful of names that could be very interesting trade targets for the Vancouver Canucks. As he mentioned, Alex Wennberg, Adam Gaudette, Ryan Poehling, Jean-Gabriel Pageau, and Kevin Hayes as potential guys the Vancouver Canucks could target to try and improve their center group. Now, Wennberg and Gaudette are both in San Jose. Gaudette was originally a Canuck a whole bunch of years back. He was helping them win playoff games in the bubble, but at this point in time, he's a San Jose Shark player, signed for 2 more seasons. Really, Gaudette at this point in time is more of like a third, fourth line guy. He's not a second line center. Wennberg, I think, is one of the more likely guys who can be a second line center if need be. I think he's also more suited to be like a third line center, but he's got 1 year left, $5 million. He's a good two-way guy. I think out of the guys I'm just going to mention here that Seravalli mentioned, Wennberg would be probably one of the more better fits for the Vancouver Canucks, although I do think he's more of a third line center. So that's another option. He said Ryan Poehling and the Ducks organization, once again, another guy who's more of a third, fourth line center at this point in time. Jean-Gabriel Pageau, if the Islanders are out of it later on, Pageau could definitely get dealt, and he has shown in the past he can be a second line center, more of a third line center at this point in time. Also, 1 year deal, $5 million. And he also mentions Kevin Hayes, who's making, I think, just over $3.5 million for 1 more season. At this point in time, he's more of a third line center as well. So, like, I think there's a possibility that Wennberg and Pageau would be probably the best fits for the Canucks situation, especially given the fact that Hill's injured, because I do think Wennberg and Pajot have the capacity to play second-line center minutes. I think Poehling, Hayes, and Gaudette all at this point in their careers are more third-line centers. I don't think it'd be really good to try and trade for them and get second-line center minutes. But we know the Canucks, with their injuries, they're already missing a top 6 center because they were looking for one in season, and now Filip Chytil's injured. So with all of that in mind, it seems that the Canucks are really looking for a center upgrade. And I do think Wennberg and Pajot will be really good fits to try and acquire and improve their second-line center position. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But that's all I'm going to talk for today. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you think the Canucks go after a center? Could be one of those 5 names that Seravalli mentioned. If not, what other centers do you think the Canucks could go after? Do you think the Bolts will make some sort of a big move that could involve Sam O'Reilly? And do you think that the Edmonton Oilers could move Emberson or Janmark to try and get some more roster flexibility? Definitely your thoughts on all of that, plus all of the news updates and the signings and the injury updates from our past couple of days. That's all I'm going to talk for today. Until this video, and if you'd like to subscribe below, thank you for all your support. I would never be able to with all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to stay tuned for videos coming out in the very near future. Also a blog, comment, news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. I'll link to that in the description below. Can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.